Before this interview commences, I just want to ask a few questions. Do I have permission to be recording this interview?
Yes, absolutely.
This will be used for a ASU English 102 assignment. It will be public, however. It's specifically research into discourse communities, specifically the speech and debate community or forensics at ASU. So, with all that in mind, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Do you want to remain anonymous, or am I allowed to give your name out?
No, I'm good. You can go ahead.
Awesome. And then just want to remind you that you're able to leave this interview at any given time. If there's any questions you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer them. And of course, a transcript will be given to you just to make sure you didn't want anything you said to be public if you said something by accident.
Oh.
Okay, so starting the interview, who am I here with?
You're here with Jacob Graver-Sido.
And you are a member of the speech and debate team at ASU, correct?
Yes, I'm in the third year.
Third year. So I'm assuming you've been with the team for 3 years, then, right?
Yes, yeah.
Awesome. So I guess I'll just ask you a few questions now. So, what made you join the team?
I did 4 years in high school. I originally started with one event, and I knew I wasn't at my full potential, so I wanted to pursue, I guess, the higher level of collegiate forensics. And the last 3 years have really been a good growing experience. I just want to keep getting better. I didn't want to hang the suit up, and I just wanted to continue to kind of break my individual ceiling.
I get that. I get that. Were there any like specific individual ceilings you hit during high school that made you wanna like go past them?
Yeah, the main issue with the one event that I was carrying for 4 years was extemporaneous speaking is memorized in high school, so the analysis is not as deep. But instead, when you go to college, it's you can use a note card,
Mm-hmm.
so the analysis is much better. You can develop your speeches a lot more because you're not worried about, do I remember this? Rather, how can I continue to expand what I'm saying?
I get that. I get that. And for like the people who don't know, what is extemp speaking?
Extemporaneous speaking is the total of 37 minutes, 30 of which being research, and then you craft a 7 minute speech using an attention getter, talk about the question, and then you deep dive into 3 points of analysis on your reasoning.
Do you remember your favorite attention grabbing device, or like one that was just very memorable to you?
Not really, but it's always the next one. I'm always just trying to put something better on the table for the next round.
I get that. And I guess you said you did extemp in high school. Are you pursuing any more speech events in college?
Yeah. Last few years, I've ran informative, persuasive, after dinner speaking, and impromptu speaking. With next year plans to do dramatic interpretation, program oral interpretation, informative, and another after dinner speaking.
What would you say would be like the favorite of like all those events?
This year's persuasive speaking on supplements and their harm to the American people have been very interesting.
Do you have like a favorite part of that specific speech, or
We call out some products like Kiala, like powdered greens. We also call out influencers like Liver King, Alex Jones, and Mike Lindell. So it's very interesting to kind of talk about right-wing influence on the supplement industry and actually how all the money feeds back into politics.
that's awesome. Would you say you've learned anything like over years with speech, like not even just limited to the team, but like overall speech and debate?
Yeah, I think actually the most interesting takeaway that I've recently been thinking about is just my ability to, I guess, drive like rhetorical interest in, things I'm saying, or if I'm writing a paper, I'm actually very strong with my rhetorical appeals, meaning, why we should care about anything I either talk about or write about. Speeches really help me to develop just being interesting and I guess having a mechanism to really draw people into topics that they potentially would have never had interest in or had any prior knowledge of.
So not only is it fun, you would say it's like an actual extracurricular activity, like learning wise.
Oh, absolutely. I learn a lot from people I watch, my preparation for my events, talking with my coaches through our hours of practice. I learn something new every day through forensics.
Awesome. So you just told me about practice. What does a typical practice look like?
It depends whether we're doing the limited preparation, like extemporaneous or impromptu. With my coach, we will run two speeches. We'll actually do an extemp. We'll take, the 30-minute preparation period. We'll run the 7-minute speech. And then impromptu is a 7-minute speaking and prep time. So we'll run like new quotations twice a week uh, with extemp and impromptu.
That's awesome. So you keep talking about extemp and impromptu and how they're both limited prep. Do you have like a favorite between the two, or?
Actually, I've begun to appreciate impromptu a lot more because it's just a time that you can talk about things that you're really passionate about or like interesting ideas or arguments about a quotation, and it draws from very obscure knowledge. Sometimes I mention things that I would have never thought about, but my active recall will randomly bring up.
That's interesting. And so you mentioned tournaments a little. Like tell me about tournaments. Are they like local or national? Like what does a tournament look like?
In the forensic space, where we're situated, in Phoenix, Arizona, or Tempe, Arizona, I guess. It's a little bit difficult because we have to drive to tournaments in California, or if we rarely go over to the East Coast, we have been to New York before. Tournaments are really great. They're a time where I can bond with my team, I can meet new people, and going to like different, I guess different parts of the country and different districts. How people, do forensics a little bit differently is always interesting, and I'm always wondering, to myself, how's my form with respect to like West Coast derived knowledge gonna hold up? So tournaments, we mainly travel. Unfortunately, Arizona does not have a large forensics community, but it's always very valuable to go to different states and see what they have going on with respect to their events.
Do you typically like the tournaments where you have to travel to? Or are you more of a fan of like local circuits, or is there like virtual
Uh,
circuits you could also do?
there's also a very strong virtual like I guess existence post COVID obviously. No, those aren't really intriguing. It's good to go out to tournaments and meet new people. I've met a lot of great people through forensics that I have amazing memories, being in top six with or just being very competitive against. But yeah, at the end of the day, we can still be very good friends. And I think that really is it's really a situation that forensics puts you in that's so unique that you can be so competitive but yet still be so respectful with somebody.
That's awesome. And do you have like a favorite place you visit for tournaments, or?
Um, I guess going to New York was fun. We went to Hofstra University for the off-Broadway swing toward the end of December, and walking around New York City, it was really fun. Getting to explore around. Also, just going to places like Texas, something very new. I've never been there before, so it was exciting to kind of see the culture, the good barbecue, and meet some interesting people out there.
Interesting people. So you were talking about travel earlier. Does that cost a lot, or what's the deal with travel?
So the team covers all the costs. It's really nice. Some teams don't have that luxury.
Hmm.
But because we put on a high school tournament once a year, that helps our fundraising situation. So they don't expect anything financially out of us. They just expect, our hard work and then our volunteer time come January when we host.
That sounds like a pretty good deal to me. Um,
Absolutely.
let's see. So, I guess going back to you mentioned like suits, like hanging up the suits. I assume you're not talking about like a Batman costume, right? Like, what do you like? What are
I hope
the
not.
uniforms like typically look like for the or speech?
I guess let me speak on more males because I'm not too familiar with, I guess the female attire, but it's always going to be either two or three-piece suit, however you like. I have a blue, gray, charcoal, and black. I have a bunch of like interesting dress shirts and then way too many ties. Like I have an exorbitant amount of ties that I can always swap out. So it's professional attire and it's fun to put on a suit and get in that formal mindset. I think that really kind of that kind of mindset just doesn't exist until you get into a tournament. But when you're wearing that suit and you're about to go up, there's no better feeling than that.
Do you think you perform better with a suit on? Like you were talking about like your practice speeches. Do you think you give better speeches like because you're locked in because of the suit, or is it just like a tournament mentality?
I think it's a little bit of both. I do enjoy wearing something formal, just having that kind of like on me, the confidence. But the tournament mentality is always going to exist differently. When I run, practice speeches with my coaches, sometimes I mention that, we bring up like little things about form, but it's never until I'm in like a round speech trim that I really master those concepts. So getting in that round, it's a whole just different mentality of how you test yourself, how you gauge your performance. You can't prepare for it. You really can't.
So obviously these are competitions, and I assume you're not judging yourself. So what does like a judging situation typically look like?
You're usually in front of preliminary has one individual, and final rounds often have three. But once you get to the likes of NFA, the National Forensics Association's tournament, it's nationals, or Pi Kappa Deltas, we're going in about a few weeks. You could be put into panels of three, five plus. It'll get more intense as you continue to go up because they need more individuals to give you feedback and to really decide. I guess who would be a representative top six.
I see. So because there's so many different people, I guess like would some judges disagree with others, or is there like a specific standard on which they judge?
Are you talking about like intra-judge communication or how judges view
Like
competitors differently?
I think like in some scenarios, one judge might score the round very highly for you, and another judge might have not liked that speech. Would them not liking the speech actually like interfere? Like, is there a specific way they have to score a round, or
No, it's the greatest demonstration of free will, whether we like it or not. I've had a few tournaments this season actually where I've gone 1, 2, 4. In terms of like one judge gives me one judge gives me one, the second one gives me two, last one gives me a dead last, and that's decided a few rounds for me. But honestly, I've taken it well. I've just had to take a deep breath and say, okay, I didn't appeal to that one individual, and I can't do anything about that at the end of the day. I'm just here to do my thing. I'm not going to bend to the will of anyone else. I'm just determined on doing what I know best. And, whether it's successful or not, they're the only ones that can tell me. And, we can't fight it.
yeah, that's a very good mentality to have. I guess like, what got you into this activity? Because I know you were obviously did it in high school, and that motivated you to go in college. But what about like what motivated you in high school? Like, how did you hear about speech and debate?
I come from a family of very strong communicators, whether it be lawyers or my grandma was actually going to be an actress at one point. So public speaking has ran in the family for a significant amount of time, and um, I think I got in contact with the head coach at my high school. I can't remember the exact scenario, but we got talking, and he told me about the event of extemporaneous, and I just kind of threw myself in there. And I've been running since.
That's awesome. Um, so I guess like in specifically the ASU community, have you felt like welcome? Like, have you enjoyed it? How does the ASU community, like speech and debate wise, make you feel?
Oh, I mean, oh, amazing. Ever since I stepped foot in the team, the coaches have been all super supportive, super driven. They've, motivated my ideas, helped me out with, continuing to grow. Even in the last year, I've grown immensely through my events. This team's amazing. I feel super at home. Everyone I compete with is super funny, super relatable, and even the debate people like you, for example, where we kind of have a gap of how much we all meet, talk to each other, whatever. I don't think that really ever has existed, honestly. I feel super close with even you guys, the ones I don't see as much.
Mm-hmm. And as far as like seeing like, or I guess not seeing people as much, is there any like team bonding activities that you guys do?
It's unfortunately a rare occasion. I guess we've all just been very busy with our different schedules, but we'll get a team together. At the start of the season, we have a team retreat we go to um, different cabins up in like Pine or Flagstaff, and we just take a few days to, all start working on our events, and that's kind of where I guess the cross between the two sides happens the most. We have, our high school tournament, obviously, as I talked about very briefly. That's another time where we spend, debate and speech a lot of time together. But beside that, we haven't really done too much to kind of cross the two sides, and I think that's actually something that I would like to work on for next year, and that the team, I guess, needs to pursue because I feel when we're all together, we're more united. It's a lot better for everyone, but also it's just reinforcing the fact that we're all a family here. We are all each other's one support system. So the team does need to get together more, and I think that's one thing that we need to pursue more in the next year.
Awesome. What would you say like your favorite memory this season has been for you?
Definitely running my Persuade debut at Texas, getting the victory. I was very competitive with, I believe it was three other people from TCU in the final round. That was very fun. I had another final round of Persuade up at CSU Northridge earlier in the season where we were separated by a score of two. The winning margin was so fine, but that was a great memory. But also every time up there in top six when I'm with my friends, patting them on the back, give each other a hug, whatever. I think that's really been the highlight of this season.
And you talk about like winning a lot. Is there any like merit to winning other than just like, oh, I won this specific tournament?
Could you elaborate a little bit more?
I guess like, is there like maybe a nationals or like a greater reward other than
Yeah,
just
yeah, I
like
see what you're
tournaments?
saying. Yeah, locals, I can get in my head as much as I can, as much as I want about, winning a local, but yeah, the goal is definitely to score well at Pi Kappa Delta and NFA. And I guess the thing that I've been taking away from like, victories, second places, I don't have to win all the time. I've gotten out of that mentality, but it's the consistency that will, I hope to hoist me forward, especially in this national prep season. We're leaving in about 9 more days from now. The consistency this season and the growth this season, I think, is something that could propel me to potentially a national break. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. I still want to have full focus, level head. But yeah, definitely just keeping your mentality up, approaching national season, doing everything right, continuing to refine yourself, and it'll show you success, especially against people that maybe you haven't seen all season. The fact that you're doing everything right, in terms of round and everything is going to take you very far.
That's awesome. What would you say like your biggest challenge right now? Like I guess for well we could start with like team challenge versus like doing well in tournament challenge. If that's okay with you.
Sorry, can you give the distinction one more time?
Yeah. So can you first tell me like what's the most challenging part like being part of like the team, if there are any?
Um, yeah, sometimes I just feel like my the conflict between my schoolwork and the team can get kind of rough sometimes, whether it be like a pre-midterm. I'm in a business college, so we always have midterms and spread out periods. It's not like one concentrated or two concentrated times, because most of our classes have about 3, 4 exams. Sometimes it's just when earlier, like in the fall semester, for example, when we're really busy in our classes, it's hard to put 100% focus on speech, especially when you need to qualify your events. But I've learned to cope over the years with how I can balance my schoolwork and balance my commitment with the team.
And then what about for like I guess like tournament specific challenges? Like what parts of your speeches like may like be a problem to not like getting first or something like that?
The main issue that we have over time sometimes is just how your speeches age in terms of your performance itself. We've had to make some edits to mine because I'm starting to run long over a 10-minute period because I'm taking more time for like vocal emphasis, and I'm sounding a lot better. And we just have to take time to, I guess, recognize that, reward the fact that I'm still putting a lot of vocal emphasis, but then cut down the speech. So we've had to make some decent changes to both of my speeches so far that I'm trying to work with to memorize for this national prep season. And that happens over the year that your speeches do get longer and you got to make adjustments. But you know, that's how it should be evolving. That's how it is.
You mentioned like the amount, like how it kind of gets hard to balance schoolwork and like debate or speech work. Would you say like this activity is inaccessible to people with a lot of work, or can they still manage?
Um, I guess potentially yes and not entirely. It just depends, like kind of like what kind of studies they're pursuing, how much credit hours they're taking, whether, you know, maybe they're unintentionally overextending themselves a little bit more, or whether they have a restriction of like an accelerated, I guess, course schedule. But people in forensics will always take time to push themselves to find the time for competition and homework. And once again, I mentioned earlier, that's why online tournaments exist. If people are too busy, they can compete virtually from their home, and it takes a lot less preparation than traveling. So I think the event itself kind of solves that problem with the introduction of online tournaments if people want to put more emphasis on that. But forensics competitors are always going to find a way to balance their social lives, their school lives, and then the time we all share tournaments together.
So it's more of like a put like you whatever time you put in is probably what you'll get out of it, but it's still pretty forgiving on the person if you can't do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's gonna, you know, have their tolerance. Everyone's gonna have their ambitions and drive. So yes, I totally agree with that statement.
So I guess like very early on in the interview, you talked about like how it's just been like a very good like skill like to have like for speeches and debates. Do you think there's any negative skills associated with speech in particular?
Because we're so intense with, you know, how much practice we all do and how much we all care for the event. Yeah, definitely. I have my moments where I'm a little bit prideful. You know, I don't win, I'm upset. It's just balancing that kind of attitude of where you expect yourself to be. And, you know, when you get a taste of victory and then you don't, you know, it's souring. A lot of people can agree, whether it be in legitimate sports or I guess racing in that context as well. Just trying to keep yourself level. I've actually came to appreciate this season a lot more than my victories, my consistency, as I mentioned. So getting myself out of that mentality of I always need to win, I think is, you know, a vice that unfortunately we all have, but especially forensics competitors with how much time we put in, you know, we kind of feel like it should be given to us. But you know what though? Hard work beats talent.
I can agree with that sentiment a lot. Have like I guess how has the like community grown since you've joined? Like it could be like even a comparison from your first year to your team to the third, or like even one you've just seen this year.
Um, I guess I'll talk about like our team first, and then I can briefly talk about the individuals I've met. It's been, you know, it was challenging getting off from a mainly online like based few seasons to going back to in person. Last year we had, I believe it was 5 individuals graduate, so that was kind of tough to lose the culture that we built together. But this team that we brought up this year, we've had 7 on the speech side. You know, we've been building that new culture. We've been figuring out, you know, who we are and trying to push a new environment for ASU forensics. And I feel that also with the circuits I've been to. I've been to, you know, I've met individuals that do 2 years in the community college circuit and don't continue to for another 2, whether they go to a 4 year or, you know, I've met 4 year people that have graduated. The circuit's continuing to grow a lot with individuals with different, like, you know, major emphasis and just trying to push for, I guess, like a more diverse, um, I guess, competitor base. Forensics is a challenging event because pre-COVID it was explosive. It's kind of drawn back significantly, but I still think that there's a lot of growth within the community itself. We're still producing great people every year. I meet new people every single season, once again, on our team or not, that are wonderful. And I'm happy that they can stick around for the community and really show people what it means to be competitive and what it means to be, I guess, an integral part of the overall community.
Awesome. You talked about like meeting new people. Would you say this is a very like newcomer friendly like environment?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the most inspiring thing, even for people who jump into forensics with no experience, is just the strength of speakers that they see. I've had individuals watch me that are very new, and they told me high praise, how good I am, and then I talked to them how, it takes a while to grow that kind of skill. But people can take 1 or 2 years and really do well. I had a former teammate last year, Zenobia, who went from, pretty much 1.5 years, not a lot of experience, to an extemporaneous and impromptu national quarterfinalist. So,
That's pretty
yes, it's
impressive.
very newcomer friendly because the communities that we all have with our coaches can really push us very far in a short number of time and a short amount of time. And I think that's a very valuable part of forensics itself.
Now, I haven't had that much experience with speech, but I know in debate we have a lot of like very strange terms, I guess, to like newcomers, like maybe like consolidation speech or something like that. Like, is there any like
Mhm.
strange vocabulary that is like specific to people in the speech community?
Um, I mean, sometimes how we describe like structure of events, like I've talked to people about impromptu. So how impromptu works with our structure is there are two different kinds.
Hmm.
We call one 3-1. We call the other one 2-2. That's actually confused people when I've told them about one or the other, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" 2-2 is basically two arguments, individual tag lines with divert with two diverse examples underneath them, hence 2-2. And then we also have 3-1, which is one entire argument, three examples of which. So sometimes when I'm talking to random people about like impromptu, they're like, "What do you mean 3-1 or 2-2?" But in terms of like I guess individual like words, not really, because with speech being so unique with topic areas, it's not like debate where you're consolidated to, one form you guys do everything. Because forensics speech itself takes so many forms, it doesn't really take on that kind of niche language nature. Instead, it actually grows outward to develop new language that's interesting to learn.
That's awesome. I guess this is kind of for like myself here. I recently was judging a debate tournament, and this kid was using extremely like advanced vocabulary. Does that ever happen in rounds where you just can't understand someone because of like their specific language?
I mean, sure. I'm sure I've seen people try to talk, kind of fancy and everything to drive their point home, but I don't think that's good to do. I think that forensics is a learning activity, and I think that we all need to use language that is, common, language that is interesting, and can teach people things rather than kind of make you sit in the audience and scratch your head. I think that, we all should be learning from each other. That's the beauty of the event. So when I do see it, I try not to be harsh of a critic, but you're right. It's gonna leave me with a kind of a bad taste in my mouth, at
Mm-hmm.
least for the moment afterwards. So I mean, yes, it does happen, but I think people once again should embrace teaching somebody something rather than I'm going to talk in a very specific way that only I understand, and I'm not going to be generally appealing toward people watching, whether it be judges or spectators.
That makes pretty good sense to me. I guess I have like one final question for you. If you could like go back in time and like have the option of not getting involved in speech and debate versus getting involved, like would you do it all over again or?
I would definitely do it all over again. I think it was fun. High school speech itself, though, it's not the greatest because of the limitations I talked about with like how extemp is structured. It's not going to produce very good speeches, unfortunately. But if I didn't go through those times as a 14-year-old kid getting critiqued super harshly when I was a nobody in the event, I don't know who I'd be today. if I was facing that intense criticism, that I can still, apply to my speeches right now. I think it's good. It's one of the best things you can do for yourself, honestly, just learning how to speak in a professional setting to people. Because a lot of people have an irrational fear of public speaking. I can't remember a poll I saw. It was like, I think 1 in 4 don't like to. Public speaking, is something that always gets me going. It's something I really look forward to, and it's a strength that, once again, I think a lot of people need to learn, whether it be like in their professional communities. It's very good for the workplace because people I hang around in speech and debate, are English and comm majors, but for me in business, this is still very valuable. I'm still learning a lot about how to talk to people and inform people on topics that they are not sure about. So to answer your question, I would do it all over again in every lifetime. I don't see a Jacob Graver without speech and debate in his life. He'd be nowhere without all of this.
Any advice to anyone wanting to join the team or interested?
Don't be scared. Throw yourself in. Take the plunge. Have a good time. Don't be discouraged by the bad times. The good times are always coming. As I said earlier, what's my favorite intro? It's always the next one. It's always what I can do next. How I can continue to, reinvent myself. How I can learn new things. And I think forensics really kind of puts you in an interesting situation where, once again, you can learn a lot and you can be the educator to people about topics that you have intense care about, but potentially they don't.
Mm-hmm.
Those rhetorical strengths that people find through forensics and, the personal growth they have in who they are, it's such an intense catalyst that could not happen without forensics.
Pretty solid answer. I mean, you convinced me to join at the very least. I think I'm all out of questions. Is there anything else you want to say before I conclude the interview?
Yeah, if anyone here was interested on joining, we are at ASU _forensics on Instagram. Check us out. We are concluding our season soon, but once we get underway in the summer, we are open to new people all the time, whether it be, you want to join like in the fall semester, whether you want to join in the spring semester. We're always open to new individuals. So, throw yourself to the lions a little bit, experience something new, and have fun with it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the interview. I appreciate it a lot.
You're welcome.
Have a good one.
You too.